Hey everyone, what's going on? If you're new to this channel, in order to understand this video, you're going to have to go and watch some other videos that I'm going to leave in the description. And I know they're long, and all of this might sound crazy, but what I talk about on this channel is how our mainstream media, our sports leagues, our history, and the things that go on in our daily lives even are all coded by a script. And it stems back to ancient knowledge things such as Hermeticism and astrology and Kundalini and also Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism that has a belief that God created the world by merging the letter with the number. And within Kabbalah is what is called Gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words and phrases. And if you follow my channel, I talk a lot of times about how my own life is somehow synced up to these stories that are going on in the media. And if you pay enough attention to the things going on in your own life, you can see how everything in this world is truly interrelated. There's something that is guiding me to understand the patterns that are existing within our mainstream media. And that's part of the reason why I discovered when we got this blackface story with Ralph Northam, let me find it here, this blackface story. In this video, I talked about how Little Bow Wow was also in the mainstream media around the same time. And it's important because they called this a minstrel show, and Don Lemon called, the last time that was in the media was Don Lemon calling Kanye West's visit to the White House a minstrel show. And Don Lemon also interviewed LeBron James earlier in the year, and Donald Trump said Don Lemon made LeBron look smart, but he likes Mike. And then Bow Wow's in that movie called Like Mike. And when you go to my videos and you search Don Lemon, for whatever the reason, the only video that comes up is a video about Bow Wow. And it has nothing to do with Don Lemon. I never even mentioned Don Lemon in this video. So why, when I type in Don Lemon, does a video about Bow Wow come up? And then these stories come in the media right around the same time. And I said, I wonder if it's something to do with Kurtis Blow, the rapper, because Bow Wow sings that song Basketball. And, it's synced up to LeBron James and Michael Jordan and basketball. And then, 4 days later, we get a story about this other guy doing blackface in Virginia. And he was doing it as a tribute to Kurtis Blow, the rapper. And, the story came 185 days before or after Kurtis Blow's birthday. And the word basketball equals 185 in Gematria. Also, so I make this video talking about Kurtis Blow and whatnot, and I re-explain a bunch of stuff, how it's connected to this Kanye West video and also the death of the Fleetwood Mac guitarist coming 127 days after the other Fleetwood Mac guitarist, who is named Lindsey Buckingham, was in the media for suing Fleetwood Mac. And I'm uploading this video last night, and I go to CNN, and there's a story about the Fleetwood Mac ex-guitarist Lindsey Buckingham, who had emergency heart surgery, and now his vocal cords are messed up. So, I'm making these videos, I'm talking about these things, and then just hours later, you go to CNN, and it's one of the top headline stories of, something that is connected to what I am talking about. And, what a lot of this stuff, I call it synchronicity, and that stems back to, let me find this guy here, Carl Jung, who coined this term called synchronicity. And what that is say you're thinking about somebody, and then all of a sudden your phone rings and that person is calling you. Or say you're reading a book, and say I'm reading this right here, and I'm reading The Lifelong Psychological, and then I hear the TV say the word psychological right as I'm reading this word. That's what synchronicity is. And just look how this guy is coded by the numbers. Just want to point out, this guy coined that term synchronicity, but his name in Gematria just so happens to equal 50 and also 85. And notice, he died 50 days, was it before his birthday? He died 50 days before his birthday at the age of 85. And his name equals 50, and his name also equals 85. And he's a protege of Sigmund Freud. And Sigmund Freud, he died 141 days after his birthday, and Sigmund Freud equals 141 in Gematria. So what are the odds of this, you know? These are real things. In my own life, I was born in the year 82, 82 days before my mom's birthday, and my mom's full maiden name and my mom's full married name both equal 82 in Gematria. You know? Or another example is my girlfriend's name equals 117, and our son that we have together, he was born on January 17th, and her daughter was born 117 days before her birthday even. What are the odds of that, you know? And our son was born just after my grandma had died 1 month and 17 days before my own birthday. And, you know, they've been showing us this in movies and whatnot for many years. I just recently watched the movie The Butterfly Effect, and in that movie, he uses his old memories to go back and he can manipulate the past, and he can manipulate the way the world works by remembering, you know, reading from his journals and using his old memories in order to manipulate the way the world works. And I've been talking about how there are people who understand this knowledge and they control our mainstream media and they use it to manipulate the way the world works. And maybe you've seen the TV show called Touch with Kiefer Sutherland, and that's all about this autistic boy who can see the code of the world, and he tries to make things touch because he talks about the ancient Chinese proverb of how everything is connected through a string, and at some point in time, all of these things are meant to touch, and, you know, whether good or bad. And he's trying to make these things touch at certain times to make the world a better place, if that makes sense. So, you know, in Kabbalah, there's the red string of Kabbalah, too. So it's definitely significant. Even check out the new show called God Friended Me. It's all about this. You know, he gets these text messages from a God account on Facebook, and then he follows these patterns because, you know, like, for example, he gets this text message from God, and it has this picture of the clouds on the thing, and he looks up at the sky, and the same picture is exactly what the sky looks like at that same time. They've been showing this stuff in movies for a really long time, and if you just keep paying attention, you can see how everything in this world is truly interrelated. Anyway, the reason that I bring all of this up is because, so I made that stuff about Lindsey Buckingham, and last night I made a video saying I needed to look more into it today. I was too tired, I wasn't getting the point of it, and I just started thinking about it today. I wondered, it has to do, you know, there has to be something to do with Stevie Nicks, who is the singer of the band Fleetwood Mac. And I remembered that back in the summertime, I had Synchronicity with Stevie Nicks. I was watching, well, let me find it here, see if I pulled it up. I just got out of the shower and I was drying my hair, and my daughter, I had a towel on my head, and my daughter called me a towel head. And, you know, it wasn't being racist or anything. She was just being silly. She doesn't even understand all of that anyway. She was just like, haha, you're a towel head, whatever. And I ended up just whatever. Later on, she got on her tablet, or just after, she got on her tablet and was watching cartoons, so I just turned on a random episode of South Park on the TV. It didn't even show me what episode it was. I just went to season 5 and just randomly selected an episode, because on the Showbox thing, it didn't even show what the episode was called. So it's just this random episode, and it ended up being this episode, it was the first one that aired just after 9/11 happened, and it was called Osama bin Laden Has Farty Pants. And in this episode, they're trying to take this goat back to Afghanistan, and all the soldiers mistake the goat as Stevie Nicks. So I was like, huh, interesting. Stevie Nicks is a goat, and if you followed what I have been talking about on a lot of these deals, it syncs up to Michael Jordan and Tom Brady and LeBron James, right? Who often get compared to, you know, or people talk about it, them being the GOAT. Tom Brady, the GOAT. They just released that beer with the Tom Brady with the goat head. Michael Jordan is the GOAT, right? And then people are arguing about if LeBron James is also the GOAT, the greatest of all time. So there's this big thing with the GOAT and how it syncs up to Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. And then, of course, Stevie Nicks and the synchronicity that I had was also a GOAT on South Park. So anyway, another thing that's really interesting about this is this synchronicity that I had. You know, it's all talking about the Goldberg symbolism and the duck symbolism. And I also mentioned 9/11 because in this episode of South Park, they with Osama bin Laden, they do a bunch of Looney Tune type animation and whatnot at the end of this episode. And Osama bin Laden, I can't remember what all happens, you know, but they do like that Looney Tune kind of like when someone gets hurt and it goes like, bow, and whatever. And they do all that kind of jokes like Looney Tunes. And the next night with my daughter, she watched Scooby-Doo, and the suggested things were the Looney Tunes movie. It was this movie, Looney Tunes Back in Action, that was supposed to be Space Jam Part 2, actually. And anyway, it was just interesting. So I turned this movie on, and Goldberg, the wrestler, just so happened to be in this. And he's a bad guy. Goldberg, the wrestler. Also, the main character, his name is DJ Drake. And his dad is Damian Drake. And a drake is a male duck. So think about Goldberg, the goalie, and the Mighty Ducks. And earlier this year, I was following this big duck and drowning symbolism that was going on, and how it was synced up to Goldberg, the goalie. And then we got the duck boat drowning, right? And I was following these drowning stories. I had a synchronicity with the band Drowning Pool and a bunch of other things with drowning. And in regards to Don Lemon, what's interesting about that is Don Lemon's, let's see here, Don Lemon, his sister just so happened to drown in a pool on February 7th of 2018. So Don Lemon's sister, she drowned in the media. I'm talking about how this is connected to Don Lemon as well. And think about Kanye West. Kanye West was also involved in all of this. I talked about his meeting to the White House and how it was all about the Queen symbolism, and this was about King Arthur and the King symbolism, because the band Fleetwood Mac has a song called Rhiannon, and Rhiannon, some people say, was the Lady of the Lake that gave King Arthur Excalibur and whatnot. And think about Drake, the rapper, in regards to Kanye West. And, you know, they had this little feud again back in February, and that was, you know, all by the numbers. Drake equals 120, Kanye West's name equals 120, Illuminati equals 120. We had that super moon, the wolf moon, on January 20th, on Buzz Aldrin's birthday. The word eclipse equals 120. It was the day that the Chiefs played the Patriots, right? And the Chiefs mascot is the wolf, and it was all synced up to Moses, who bred in the age of Aries, which is a ram, which is why the Rams went on to go to the Super Bowl. And Moses supposedly died at the age of 120. And, you know, now we're in the month of February, and February equals 120. So it's really, really important. It's Black History Month, and so on. But just pointing it out, all of this duck drowning and Goldberg symbolism, you know, way back when, so I talked about all these drowning stories and how I thought we were possibly going to get a drowning story in the media. And then I think it was just the next day, we got this duck boat drowning. And somewhere in this mix, I talked about the duck boat crash that happened in Seattle. And back in May, before I even made these videos, I had synchronicity with that. And I watched the Mighty Ducks. I can't remember what it was, but there's something to do with watching the Mighty Ducks. And anyway, I talked about how this was synced up to Goldberg, the goalie from the Mighty Ducks. And then a few weeks later, we got a story of Goldberg, the goalie, being arrested. And, you know, that's why it was important to see that have this synchronicity, and then Goldberg is in this movie Looney Tunes, right? The wrestler Goldberg. If you don't know about the wrestler Goldberg, in the WCW, he was the wrestler who defeated Hulk Hogan's New World Order, right? The NWO in wrestling. And it's all synced up by the numbers. All of this, absolutely synced up by the numbers. New World Order and Gematria equals 174. So does Hollywood Hogan. If you write out the phrase NWO, it equals 174. And Goldberg, he just so happened to have a 173-0 record, and he lost on, he's the guy who defeated the NWO, and he lost 174 days later on his birthday, on his 174th match to the NWO again. He also made his wrestling debut on the 174th day of the year. There's all kinds of stuff. Made his wrestling debut, 174th day of the year. He defeated the NWO 174 days before his birthday. And then, like I said, he lost on his 174th match to the NWO. And think about it. New World Order 174, Hollywood Hogan, the leader of the NWO. Talking about how all this connects to 9/11 and George H.W. Bush just dying. And he gave his NWO speech exactly 11 years to the day before 9/11 happened in the 11th state with the Twin Towers that looked like a giant 11. And the first flight that hit the plane or hit the towers was flight AA:11. A is the first letter, a lot like 1111. And also NWO equals 11 in Gematria. So, you know, it is also on the 11th day of September, on the day that leaves 111 days in the year. So very, very significant. And the reason that's important is because this year's Super Bowl was all about 9/11, right? We had the last time the Patriots and the Rams played in the Super Bowl was just after 9/11, when Tom Brady came out of nowhere and led the Patriots to the Super Bowl to defeat the Rams, right? And there's a whole bunch of other stuff I talked about in a few of these previous videos of how it's synced up to Teen Wolf and the Nebraska Cornhuskers, because on 9/11, George Bush even flew to Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, and his vice president, Dick Cheney, was from Lincoln, Nebraska, where the Cornhuskers play. That's why in the NFL championship games, we had Greg Zuerlein, or however you say the guy's stupid name. He's from Lincoln, Nebraska, and he made that 57-yard field goal to send the Rams to the Super Bowl. Rams equal 57. And then former Nebraska football player Rex Burkhead, he scored the winning touchdown for the Patriots to go on to go to the Super Bowl. And his full name equals 911 in Jewish Gematria. Then we also had Ndamukong Suh, who was a former Nebraska Cornhusker who even played with Rex Burkhead. The very next day after the Super Bowl, we got the Rams quarterbacks coach, Zach Taylor, who's going to be coaching the Cincinnati Bengals now. And he was a former Nebraska Cornhusker. Then we got that story about Jerry Sandusky. And in 2015, I talked about how Penn State was important to Nebraska because they were the first team to play Penn State after the Jerry Sandusky stuff. And a bunch of other things. It's all synced up to Nebraska. So, building this up here, the reason that Michael Jordan is so important is because this year the NBA All-Star Week is going to fall on Michael Jordan's birthday, which is February 17th. The NBA All-Star Game is going to be played on Michael Jordan's birthday, and it's also held in Charlotte, the team that Michael Jordan owns in basketball. He owns the Charlotte Hornets. And a big thing that I was talking about with the Nebraska Cornhuskers was in 2015, during the NBA All-Star Week, we had a teen Minnesota Timberwolf, Andrew Wiggins, win the Rising Star Challenge MVP. And then the very next night on Valentine's Day, another teen Minnesota Timberwolf won the slam dunk contest doing the Space Jam dunk. He wore the Space Jam jersey. And the reason this was important was because this NBA All-Star Week, it just so happened to fall over February 13th, 14th, and 15th, which if you look up the Roman festival of Lupercalia, where they celebrate and sacrifice a wolf, it actually it doesn't say that on here now, but if you look it up, it's from February 13th through the 15th. And, that's when the NBA All-Star Week happened. And then we had the two teen Minnesota Timberwolves be the best at something over that. And then just after that, Kevin Garnett, the original Teen Wolf, he got traded back to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I talked about how all of this was important to Michael Jordan way back when. But Michael Jordan it was just before he turned 52 years old. And this year he's going to turn 56 years old. And look at the word wolf in Gematria. 52 and also 56. That's why Kevin Garnett was important. Kevin Garnett equals 56. Michael J. Fox, 56 and 52. That's why he was the Teen Wolf. And in the movie Teen Wolf, there's Nebraska Cornhusker stuff all throughout the background of the movie, which makes no sense because there's palm trees in the movie. The movie wasn't set or filmed in Nebraska. And a bunch much more. It had Mike Riley, who was the coach of the Cornhuskers in 2015. He became the coach. And he came from the Oregon State Beavers. And in the movie Teen Wolf, the Oregon State Beavers are what their mascot is based off of. The mascot's the Beavers. Then that's why it's important that Jerry's Sandusky stuff, because Penn State plays in Beaver Stadium. And Mike Riley had some stuff going on with him in 2015 about rape. Just think about that in regards to beavers, right? So, anyway, the guy who's really important is Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, his name even equals 52 like Wolf. I didn't even realize that before, but he's really important because he did the Space Jam dunk. And all of this connecting to 9/11 is interesting because I talked about how Michael Jordan retired from baseball on a date numerology of 127. It was 3/10 of 1995. 3 plus 10 plus 19 plus 95 is 127. And the Bulls retired his jersey 1 year and 27 days after he retired. The word retirement equals 127. When Michael Jordan played baseball, he only played 127 games. And his first game was 127 days before the Major League Baseball strike. And then he retired on a date numerology of 127. And King Arthur equaled 127. Lindsay Adams, Buckingham equals 127. The story about him came out 127 days before Michael Jordan's birthday and 127 days after the other Fleetwood Mac guitarist Danny Kerwin died on Kanye West's birthday. And then we got the story of the Virginia people, right? Justin Fairfax and Mark Herring and Ralph Northam was all synced up to this blackface stuff, and Virginia equals 127 in Gematria. But moral of the story, Michael Jordan retired on 3/10 of 1995, which just so happened to be Osama bin Laden's 38th birthday. And if you look up Zach LaVine, the guy who did the Space Jam dunk way back when, the Teen Wolf, look what his birthday was. The same day, the same exact day that Michael Jordan retired from baseball. And you might recall that story we got about the guy who took down Osama bin Laden resigning recently. It was I can't remember when he resigned, but let's find it here. September 14th. It was the same day that the Bengals beat the Ravens. We got a story of William McRaven resigning. And the Ravens were really important to the flag symbolism. But I talked about how that was synced up to the Rams through Moses Cleveland. And, the Rams, or the Cleveland and Baltimore, when Cleveland was going to move their team to Baltimore and so on. I'm not going to re-explain it, but, look at this guy. The guy who took down Osama bin Laden, his birthday just so happens to be the 310th day of the year. November 6th, 310th day of the year. Osama bin Laden born on 3/10. He resigns in the 77th anniversary of the Pentagon being established, or whatever, on the 77th year of that, and it was established on 9/11 of 1941. 77 years ago. It was 77 stories tall. Flight 77 hit it on the 77th meridian, exactly 77 minutes after takeoff. And if you write out World Trade Center, it equals 77. And if you write out September 11th, it equals 77. And that's why George Bush was the head of the CIA in the year 77. And George W. Bush got married in the year 77. And, oh man, that's why Prescott Bush, we'll just find it here. Prescott Bush, pretty sure he died age 77. Prescott Bush. Well, he died 7 months and 7 days before his birthday. I'm not sure if he died age... Yeah, he died age 77. 7 months and 7 days before his birthday. So... And remember this film, I Pet Goat, is all about George Bush reading to the kids in Florida the day of 9/11, you know, called My Pet Goat. And then he left from there and he went to Nebraska. So it's definitely, Nebraska's definitely important to this coding, you know. Think about Donald Trump dividing everybody, just the nation being divided through the media and everything else. You know, not just Donald Trump, I guess, but just think about it, you know, in regards to Civil War in Lincoln, Nebraska. So, anyway, if you look at the song called Basketball by Kurtis Blow, it's mentioned on the Wikipedia. The song was played during an episode of the Goldbergs entitled Dungeons and Dragons. And I've even talked about this TV show called The Goldbergs and how it was synced up to a bunch of stuff. I don't want to lose you, but the Goldbergs were important. They had a Freddy Krueger episode, and they called him Kroger, and that was the same day as the Kroger shooting that was in Seattle, and the original Aurora Duck bus crash was in Seattle. And this is the moral of the story why I'm even making this video here. I just went to CNN, and right now we have a story about the footage shows aftermath of the 2015 duck boat crash. So once again, you know, something that I am talking about, I literally just documented about this. I go to CNN, and one of the major stories, the headline stories here, is about the duck boat crash of 2015. I don't know why it says duck boat of 2015, because, I don't know, wasn't it a duck bus? That doesn't make any sense. It says duck boat there, but I'm pretty sure it was a duck bus, so that's interesting. You know, the word bus equals 42. That's why Rosa Parks is on the bus, age 42. Just pointing it out. So, I don't know. They messed that up somehow. It was definitely the duck bus, not the duck boat. But the duck boat thing didn't happen in 2015. And this is obviously showing a bus here. So, I don't know why it says boat. It's easy to get mixed up, I guarantee that, because I mix it up when I'm talking about it a lot, because bus and boat, and you're talking about, you know, how they're related. But, you know, just interesting how it, you know, the Goldbergs, Bill Goldberg, the wrestler, too, I even pointed out back in September how he was drafted to the Rams, right? And then he's billed out of Atlanta, where the Super Bowl is going to be played. And I even talked about in my post about McRaven how I thought it was synced up to the Rams. So it was all about Moses. And Nebraska plays in the Sea of Red, and Moses part of the Red Sea. And that's why they had a game in Levi's Stadium after having a terrible record in 2015. And Levi's Stadium is important because Moses was in the tribe of Levi. And that's why the wall symbolism is important, because Moses led the slaves to Canaan, and then it was taken over by Joshua, and that's when they took down the walls of Jericho. And that's why the same day that we got the story about Donald Trump addressing the nation about building the wall, we got a story about Chris Jericho, the wrestler, who signed with the new wrestling league. And, right, on the same day Trump addresses the nation about the wall, That same day, John Wall, the Washington Wizards player, they found out that he had a partial rupture in his Achilles tendon, right? John Wall, the guy from Washington Wizards. Trump addresses the nation in Washington about building the wall. Anyway, this episode of the Goldbergs that had the song Basketball on it, it was just happened to be the 67th episode. 67th episode. And there's another episode that I was talking about in here called Bohemian Rhapsody, right? A play on Bohemian Rhapsody. And then it was just after the movie Bohemian Rhapsody was released. But before this, I talked about why Kanye West was important to this in 2015 because he sang the Queen song Bohemian Rhapsody in Glastonbury, and that is, all to do with King Arthur and whatnot. So it was interesting, but that episode, Bohemian Rhapsody, think about Kurtis Blow, Lil Bow Wow and whatnot, Season 6, Episode 7. And the story with Kurtis Blow, it came on Queen Elizabeth's 67th anniversary of being the Queen. And this year is 2019. The 19th Prime is 67. Also, Zach LaVine doing that Space Jam dunk on Valentine's Day is really important because the word Valentine's equals 67. That's why last year we had the Stoneman Douglas shooter whose name equaled 67, and he was supposedly 19 years old. The 19th Prime, 67, born 19 weeks after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas died. It was also 67 weeks after the Cubs had won the World Series for the first time in 108 years. And Stoneman Douglas had Anthony Rizzo, who supposedly went to high school there, who was the Cubs player, and his birthday 6 months and 7 days before Valentine's Day. Also, the Cubs beat the Cleveland Indians, that equals 67 in Gematria, so definitely important. And that World Series was really synced up to the death of Prince the singer, who died on Queen Elizabeth's birthday in 2016. And he died 67 days after his girlfriend Vanity had died, right? And we talked about how blood sacrifice equals 67. In 2015, Michael Jordan went to a Prince concert on Valentine's Day on 23 Wall Street. Think about that with Donald Trump. Think about, stock market. Think about building the wall. 23 Wall Street. And Obama went and visited the leader of the country, Jordan, on that day. Also, Michael Jordan wore number 45, and that's important to Valentine's because that's the 45th day of the year. Right now we have the 45th president, and Gematria Mike Pence equals 45. And frontwards and backwards, Mike Pence's birthday, 6/7. Mike Pence born on the same day as Prince, June 7th, 6/7. So definitely interesting. Even the St. Valentine's Day massacre, that happened in Chicago, the original one. Then we had the Stoneman Douglas one, right? And think about, yet again, how that's important to Michael Jordan and Zach LaVine, who currently plays for the Chicago Bulls, by the way. Zach LaVine plays for the Chicago Bulls. Pretty sure Denzel Valentine plays there too. Denzel Valentine, who wears number 45 now. And the same day that Zach LaVine won the slam dunk contest doing the Space Jam dunk, Denzel Valentine played for Michigan State. And he hit the game winner to win the game, right? He hit a game winner on Valentine's Day. And now these two players are playing with each other. We also had the guy Kevon Looney, who was the leading scorer for UCLA that day. Interesting, his birthday, February 6th, the anniversary of Queen Elizabeth becoming the Queen. But, I talked about how it's synced up to the Golden State Warriors, and then the Golden State Warriors went on to win the NBA Finals that year, 122 days later. Golden State equals 122. And then the next season, they drafted this guy to their team, Kevon Looney. Think about it, Looney Tunes. So, a few more things here, just a few more thoughts here. During Lupercalia, they don't only sacrifice a dog or a wolf, they also sacrifice a goat. And think about Stevie Nicks being a GOAT on that South Park episode, Michael Jordan, the GOAT, who's really important, Tom Brady, the GOAT, right? LeBron James, the Lakers aren't doing very well right now. I even talked about how I thought he'd get injured because of the number 34 and Kobe Bryant, and then he ends up getting injured on the Lakers' 34th game of the season just before he turns 34 years old. And then he loses to the Golden State Warriors, or he sits out that game, and he loses to the Golden State Warriors 34 days after his 34th birthday, but he sat out that game, right? So he came back against the Clippers, and the next time the Lakers play the Clippers is on 3-4. So it's definitely important. Just thinking about it. They sacrifice a GOAT as well. And, they call it February 15th. That's the last day, and that's the day that the University of Nebraska was established. And I also talked about how Chris Farley was important to it with the movie Tommy Boy, and Herbie Hancock and Herbie Husker and a bunch of stuff. But Chris Farley was born on February 15th. And the reason that's interesting is because if you write out sacrifice, it equals 46. And if you write out Stevie Nicks, it equals 46. If you write out Afghanistan, it equals 46. 215 is the 46th day of the year. And if you write out Lindsay Adams Buckingham, it equals 215. Tom Brady equals 46. Patriots equal 46. Vanity equals 46. She died on 215. And she's in the movie Action Jackson with Apollo Creed. Something I've been following because, Carl Weathers plays Apollo Creed that's connected to Philadelphia. And he's also Chubbs in Happy Gilmore. And he teaches Happy how to putt on the Earthquake golf course. And the building that falls over looks like the Comcast Center in Philadelphia with the black cube on it that represents the New Jerusalem. And all the stuff with Donald Trump is about the building the third temple. And, the third temple is built around the New Jerusalem. So it's really important to what's going on. And in that movie, Action Jackson, though, his name's actually Jericho Jackson, right? Think about the walls and whatnot. Jericho. 215 also leaves 319 days in the year. Remember, Prince died 319 days after his birthday. He also has a song called 319. Also, in regards to Happy Gilmore, Shooter McGavin, the guy who plays Shooter McGavin, his birthday is February 15th, right? And he's also in that movie called Leave It to Beaver, which just makes me wonder, Penn State playing at Beaver Stadium, the Oregon State Beavers, and how it syncs up to the Teen Wolf and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So who knows? It's just going through some people that were famous on Wikipedia. It showed their birthdays and whatnot. There's another guy from Omaha in the band called Bright Eyes, Connor Oberst. His birthday, he was born on 2/15, and he's 38 years old right now. Omaha equals 38. And I'm just thinking about him in regards to Saddle Creek Records and James Valentine of the band Maroon 5, who just performed at the Super Bowl. And, he's the reason that Maroon 5 even really got big, and he's from Lincoln, Nebraska. So also, Michael Jordan being 56 years old this year is interesting because 2015, that was like one of the biggest numbers that I talked about. Osama bin Laden equals 56, President 56, Rockefeller, ISIS, Paris, France, the word wolf. Abraham Lincoln died at the age of 56. He died in the month of April, that equals 56 as well, and he died at 65, the reflection of 56. So did Adolf Hitler. He died in April. His name equals 56. Royal Family 56. Pope equals 56. Society of Jesus equals 56. Pope Francis, supposedly the first Jesuit pope. King James Bible equals 56. Ides of March equals 56. The book, or not, whatever, the play Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare, it even begins during Lupercalia, right? And then Caesar died on the Ides of March. There's lots of other things. Climate change equals 56, which has been somewhat pretty big in the news, with like these polar vortexes or whatever they're called. Also, Obama went and did something with climate change in Paris that Paris, France equals 56, just after ISIS attacked, right? ISIS equals 56. Oh, there's a whole bunch more. I can't even remember them all. Black Lives Matter equaled 56. I also talked about Philadelphia yet again, where there was 56 signers on the Declaration of Independence. John Hancock, the first to sign it, died at the age of 56. The last guy to sign it, whatever his name is, it equals 56 in Gematria. And the last person to die who signed it, he died 56 years later. It was Charles Carroll III. And he died, like, I think it was 56 days or 5 months and 6 days before or after his birthday, you know? And he was the last of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence to die, and he died 56 years later. I also talked about how on 9/11, the Flight 175 that had 56 passengers on it struck the South Tower that equals 56, and then it fell 56 minutes later. There's a bunch of 68 stuff too. 911 made the emergency dialing code in the year 68, right? The same year George Bush graduated from Yale, Skull and Bones. Then we had John Kerry running against him. They were both members of Skull and Bones. Only a few people can be in Skull and Bones every year. And two of them are running for president, And so that was the year 68. And World Trade Center construction began in the year 68 on August 6th, which could be 6/8 of 68. And 9/11 happened 68 days after George Bush's birthday, even, the president at the time. And I think if you read out 68, 68 equals 56. So I pointed a lot of the stuff out a really long time ago. Important number. And then Wolf equals 56, and Michael Jordan's going to be turning 56. So hopefully that makes sense. I know it's long. If you're new, you're not going to understand it. It's a lot of information, but there's definitely something guiding me along and making me, I'm documenting these things, and then sometimes they don't make sense for months later, but something is telling me, hey, look this up again, because it makes sense to what is going on now. And that's why it's important to have a blog, or I have like a notepad here too, where I used to write all of my stuff in here, and then if I just needed to know something, Kanye West, I just type it in, and then you can find all these connections, just sitting here going through Kanye West 51, Taylor Swift 51, just all kinds of stuff. That's why a lot of people want the hard copy of Zach's book, but honestly, I really like the PDF version, because then I can just search for something if I needed to search for it. You just go to the find thing and you can find whatever you're looking for. You don't have to remember what page it's on or flip through all this stuff. So I get why people want a hard copy, but I personally like a way like this where I can search for what I'm looking for. It's a lot easier that way. But, just keep following this pattern. We'll see where it leads us. I don't know. I wouldn't think that Michael Jordan would die or anything like that, but it's all synced up to Michael Jordan and Michael Jordan's birthday. It's a lot to do with everything I talked about in 2015. And for 3 straight days now, every time I make a video or make a blog post the next day, or even just hours later, one of the headline stories is about something that I was talking about from a long time ago, and then it's in the mainstream media and it's synced up to all this that I'm talking about. So I gotta go DJ here in about, I don't know, in half an hour. So have a good one. Peace.